Hello, welcome to Garden Chronicles. My name is James David, and in today's video, I would like to talk about a little bit more concerning Anthurium plants together with Schismatoglottis. So, I hope you can sit back and enjoy the show. First thing first, when it comes to Anthurium plants, they are actually very sensitive and slow growing, and a small damage can be extensive and be permanent. So it's more of a touch me not plant. And however, I noticed that because they are very small, slow growing plant, it takes a lot of patience to cultivate them. So I noticed that they do behave differently when it comes to indoors or when you plant them in more on the semi-shaded area where they are exposed to open elements such as sun and rain. So what I noticed that uh, the leaves do tend to grow big when they receive a lot of sun. So this is one of it, and this is actually the older leaf. Actually, I can say the first few leaves, but what has happened here is that when I purchased this particular plant, the first leaf that is unrolled seems to show a lot of damage. You can see it's more like a cheese leaf plant rather than an Anthurium plant. But I believe after that, the ones that comes out was well, especially this one. You know what happened over here? There was a cat fight, and believe it or not, two cats were fighting and they actually damaged my plant. It's so sad. I don't want to trim it and just leave it as this, but I can't do anything because the damage is real, and I have to wait for another 1 to 2 hours for a new, 1 to 2 months for this particular new leaf to approach, to unroll and come out. So that's the thing about, how do you say, problems with cultivating them in open space area where nature is involved, where you don't really have much control over it. So this is one of the damage that I actually face. So just want to share to you that when it comes to Anthurium, this is part and parcel of gardening. So you will not have a perfect leaf. I think not the Instagram kind of plant. Maybe a new trend will come where everyone showcase their damaged leaves. But as for now, this is as real as it gets when it comes to gardening. I am trying to propagate this. Actually, I have already, how do you say, pollinated this earlier with this pollen, but it didn't take place. So I'm just collecting this pollen, and I may collect it later using brush. It's not focusing properly. Give me a minute. Okay, yeah, you can see it. So I have put a plastic bag over here just to protect it from not letting the pollen drop off. Then I can actually collect it, and I use a tin foil and put it in a freezer until the next flower comes in and try to pollinate that. Another thing that I've noticed, which can be hopeful, is that this particular portion is still growing and might retain its female portion of it. Actually, when it comes to Anthurium flowers, they are known as inflorescence, and being when it comes to flowers, they are actually both male and female. First will be forming as a female first, where there will be a kind of sap, a kind of a sticky sap, transparent bluish kind of thing that comes out from the female form, and after that maybe about 2-3 days they will revert to male form if it has not been pollinated. Now the mistake that I've actually done many times is just leaving it exposed. So what happens is when I put in the pollen and then when it rains, everything gets washed off. So so I'm trying and experimenting it, and hopefully it works. I really hope that I can get some seedlings on this. It's more trial and error. Some gardeners, which I noticed, they actually pinch off the flower off from this because they don't want the plant to use up so much of their energy on the inflorescence. So again, in my context, it's more an experiment here. Here, when I mentioned about my garden space, no doubt is tropical. One thing I notice is that they do behave very differently when it comes to other indoor cultivators who they grow them inside a condo or a balcony or an apartment. So it's different. So one of the things I noticed that it may not be applicable in most cases, but the basic of plant care is almost the same. Like for example, my potting medium is basically coconut chips, sand and compost. But for other ordinary gardeners, they normally use, when it comes to indoor plants, they will use this perlite and what's the word, leca, and those expensive and the high-end premium plants. So I'm not so keen in that. So my context of gardening is very much of how I can actually grow them light and easy. So basically it's more on the context that if you grow well, and if you don't, so it will be bye-bye from my garden. So basically that is the context of gardening in my garden space. So what I want to show to you here is that when it comes to Anthurium, companion plants, that is the most important thing, because when you put plants together, they create a very good humidity, and at the same time the visual display is extremely beautiful. Now you can mistaken this for Anthurium wichii because of this folded corrugated effect that is on this leaf, but comparable to the king of Anthurium, this particular one is actually very hardy. And I'm actually falling in love with this particular one, Schismatoglottis. Oh my goodness, it's so difficult to pronounce it. I really wish they come up with a common name. There is a common name in Chinese known as oxtail plant, but it is used, this particular plant is actually used as a herbal plant in that local context where it's sort of like boiling something and drinking something. So it's sort of like not yet fully known. Perhaps it's more locally identified and it's just cultivated in that context. But I must tell you that these are actually originally a native plant here in Malaysia and Southeast Asia, and there are many varieties of it. It is not yet fully exposed yet to the ornamental plant market, so it's still in the dynamics of, still in the, what am I saying, still in the experimental factor where it is not fully utilized yet. So when it comes to Anthurium, alocasia, begonias, Schismatoglottis, and even calatheas, they all can be considered as one companion plant where you can actually grow them together in a bunch. So I want to make an emphasis is that I've seen many videos and many gardeners having a problem in space, especially when it comes to rare plant, indoor plant gardening. It will be appearing like you have just one particular plant, and that particular plant is just 2 to 3 leaves. Yes, let me see if I can show it to you. Say something like this. Something like this. What's that? There's just 2 to 3 leaves, and you're taking up so much of space. So the idea here is that keeping them in compact space actually gives that visual display and economy for more plants to be grown in a small tight space zone. So this is actually a small garden space, but I'm very happy with the progress of growth and their how do you say durability, of able to grow without much care. So in my context that when it comes to humidity, this is best it gets because the plants are actually taking care of each other in the humidity factor. I normally water them 2 to 3 days once and very lightly mist it using water hose, this particular one. Of course the whole garden gets wet, but however I find that they dry up within 1 to 2 hours. So you must understand that how fast it gets hot here. On a rainy day, I normally don't water it. My context of watering them is very much watering at the top. The sun is coming very strong, and whatever the cascade from that gets down here. So I did have faced some problems where there was root rot, but because the plants are tight and planted very close to each other, so I don't really face them now. Initially I was having a lot of begonias here, but it was really challenging. Okay, let me show you this aspect of it. Okay, another way that I actually handle humidity is to keep a lot of water body around my garden. So this is one big water pond, not say very big, but it's just according to the size of my garden. I think this is probably good. So this is a cascading water effect here, and this is happening, it is circulating here about on a 24/7 kind of thing. So it's cooler on a hot day. Let's show you more. So because of this, a lot of plants sort of like establish itself with their humidity, so I really don't have to worry about dried plants. I do worry about too much humidity actually, but however I think the plant sort of balance itself with its ability to cope with the existing humidity and lighting. So in a way they are taking care of each other, which I didn't really bother so much. Okay, there's another place that I want to show to you. I just did this last week, just reword the whole thing. So you can see over here, this is actually a very medium-sized pot, clay pot. At the bottom they actually sealed off with cement and put in some water, some sphagnum moss and coconut chips. But the most important part is this one. I don't know if you can see. Yes, okay. Can you see this? This is actually a mop wick. This is actually this, and it drops over here, and it sort of like gives out a kind of cool air out when it gets too hot. And I place a lot of my acacias together with some of the begonias here, which is sort of like happening. I have not fertilized them for some time, about a month's time, so I will see what I can do after that. But for now I think they are okay, and the okay can last about a few months. So until then, if I were to do something about it, then they are stable. So basically I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 water bodies in my garden. So that is my secret about humidity. So I don't really have to worry about artificial humidity, because this kind of things actually exist, and how do you say, regulates my humidity in my garden. Actually I have some fish inside here just to control the mosquito problems, but because I just recently changed it, so they're kind of shy actually. A little bit of guppies and platies. So the other one, I don't think so you can actually see it. This is actually a drain, you know, but I've sealed off the drain, so it's just this from that portion to just roughly this portion. Let's see, I can show you. Okay, as big as that, that is the drain. I've sealed it off, and it's sort of like a reservoir for my vertical garden plants. So whenever I water it, the water just collects it over there. Also there are fish inside, but because it's so good, a lot of plants have overwhelmed the place. So it's sort of like how do you say, incorporated itself together with the plants and the water. So I find that a lot of sensitive plants seems to be able to cope with this kind of setting. So I've just recently experimenting myself with philodendron, and I find they seems to love it. So that is philodendron dragon together with syngoniums, tetrasperma, a little bit of lacerum, and also Anthurium. This is a green leaf type, and this is a zebra. I see how big it's growing. The last time I never had this size. It never grew this big. It's always very miniature size. This is a looky one. But I like this. I don't know, you can really notice it when it changes its color. It's more on the blue tones. And this is another type. Also something like Zebriana. It's supposed to be pink dragon, but I don't know if it's reverting. And a little bit of this Syngonium albo or alba. This Persian shell, I just love the colors. And all those calatheas, I'm still getting their names right. There's nebula here together with some of the other types of rare anthuriums. So that's what I'm trying to say. My point here is that I don't really give a lot of attention on the plant care. My concern is very much collecting those which can actually exist and grow well in my garden. So it'll be more of trial and error for 2 to 3 times, and if they still die, I'll just let it go. I am not going to purchase it and grow it. You won't believe it when it comes to caladium, this particular, actually I have a lot of caladium here. But they come in season, so this particular one is coming over this period of time. And once this goes off, something else will come in, a different color. I think it's white Christmas. So that one will take over and it will be of this size. But do you notice that it is just one singular leaf? So that is the strangest thing about caladiums in my garden. I considered caladium as a finicky plant because I purchased a lot of them, and after a season, once they go dormant, they don't seem to come back. So some of the plants I let go, some of the plants I keep them as my collection. And my idea of collecting plants is to keep them for years, so that I don't really want to constantly buy and purchase and filling them up in my garden. The first time that I showed in a video concerning this was my Bulmax, which was sort of like was spent and burnt and dried up. Now it's picking up slowly. So in a way, it's actually doing very well. Also, the zigzag plant. I really find it very difficult to pronounce it in their scientific name, but I find that the common names is much more easier to pronounce it correctly. And I find that this actually gives very good color in my garden and very hardy actually, and I'm planning to grow them as much as possible. So basically this is my garden currently at this moment of time, and I'm just in love with this part of it where it actually complements each other as a companion plant together with the Anthurium plants with Schismatoglottis plant. And I find that both are almost of the same plant care, and their durability to handle stress and their longevity to able to withstand whatever problems that it faces without dying easily in comparison with other indoor plants. I am still collecting different varieties and there are so much to learn and so much to discover concerning them. If you notice that this is actually more on the white version, and the one that is this is very much spotted and it's very thick to feel. And which one is the another one? Let's look for it. And this particular one, which is a bit shaded, more on a lower tone. You can see it. Okay, and the young leaf, you can see this. Oh my goodness, I'm fighting with this. All right, bear with me. Okay, can you see this? It's more of the heart shape type. So eventually they will grow big, but as I say, it's a slow growing thing, so you really have to wait for it and see. I've just introduced this, a new one. This is nebula, allocation nebula. It's cute, and it's doing well comparison to other Borneo ones. So there's one thing that I want to show to you. There are certain things which is very unique when it comes to plants. If you notice over here, there's a sort of like a splash on it. This is something so new which I've not come across. The uniqueness about it. It's not uniform. Can you see it? So it never done this before. This is the first time that I'm seeing. You can see it in comparison with both of it. So if you come across this and if you know about it, do put a comment below. I would really like to hear about it. This corrugated effect, all of it has it. For this particular type, there are some Schismatoglottis do not have this kind of corrugation, this folded factor. So if you're planning to purchase it and you're planning to grow it, do check in my other videos concerning the plant care, which I've actually placed it. What I want to mention to you here is that they do very beautifully as a companion plant with Anthurium. So do get them because they are just so beautiful. Now when it comes to colors, do also try to get something of a dark green colorization on your garden, because it does give that kind of a darker background to give an emphasis on the other color types. So if you notice that the dark greens is sort of like creates that 3D effect of illusion where makes your garden looks big even though it's a small space garden. So if you have a dark leaf plants, do concentrate in the fact that put them more on the background. This is commonly known in many names. In my garden space or in my locally, it's known as Anthurium verde. But I also noticed that it is also known as Ace of Spades. So the names are a bit mismatched, and that industry you have to figure out exactly how to correct that mistake. But anyway, I find that when it comes to one of the main characteristics is that glossy effect of this leaf. They are indeed a beautiful plant to cultivate. So apart from other types, especially the crystallinum, this is a crystallinum dark form and followed by magnificum. These ones are actually fast growing. Actually, I just purchased one small plant. I wouldn't even say a plant, it was actually a cutting, a bare root cutting. It's expensive, so I just got the cheapest I can get. I think it's about 2 years plus now. But they have actually filled up my garden space far more faster in comparison to other form of Anthuriums. So what I want to mention is that indeed they are slow growing, but in comparison to the slow growing in a scale of Anthuriums of 1 to 10, this falls into maybe like number 3, and the others like magnificum and crystallinum, they are more on the mid-range. So maybe you can get about 5 to 6 leaves of this when only one of that comes out as one leaf plant. So basically, if you are thinking of anthuriums and you're thinking about another companion plant that can actually goes well, of course, philodendron does well too. Philodendron verrucosum and gloriosum, they have similar appearances, but in my place it is still in premium prices, so I will hold on to that first until the price drop, what do you call that, the price bubble burst, and maybe I'll purchase it when it's a lot of supply above the demand. But as for now, I'm actually very happy with these, and I just want to share to you concerning them. Another thing that I want to mention to you is that do consider growing colored plants which have more on a neon colored varieties. These are the more on a neon colored varieties. I will come to you more in a detail in my other videos. But what I just want to give to you here is that if you just were to look at it in the colors, they actually sort of like explodes the colors in the garden. Can you see it? It's much more stronger in a visual display compared to one that's actually in the camera. But I want to show to you that do not discount this as common plant, because they really give a beautiful contrast when it comes to gardening. So I come to the end of my video. I will, what is this? It's not happening. I'll give to you more detailed information on all the plants that I actually grow them here in my garden. So catch you in my next video. Take care and have a nice day. Bye.